I have a confession to make. Some of you regular viewers may have noticed it already, but I've got a new camera. I fell for the hype, I fell for the marketing, and to be honest, it felt really good. I went into the Sony shop, bought the A7 IV, and it's to replace my A7 III. But is it really worth it? Or did I waste that money on this camera body? Now, I've had this camera for over 6 months, and I want to see what the differences are and whether it's really worth the upgrade. And I'm talking about landscape photography. I do talk a little bit about other genres of photography later on in the video, so make sure you stick around for those as well. But I'm going to take as many photos as possible with both of them, with the same lenses on each, just to see what the actual differences are. And I'll put the images in a link down below so you can download the raw files. Now, I've got a bit of dappled light coming through. What I tend to do on days like this is follow those patches of light, and if they catch something interesting, like a patch of trees, a building, or something like that, I'll try and photograph them on that point. But it's well worth coming out when there is patchy cloud about. In a nutshell, it's gone from 24 megapixels to 33 megapixels. The focusing system is so much better and the body feels bigger and better. And then there's that Sony color science. They've changed it once again. So I've basically got the A7C, the A7 III and the A7 IV. Each of them with JPEGs will produce completely different images. Now, when it comes to the Sony color science, I don't worry about it too much. I've worked with Sony cameras for such a long time that I've just got used to it. Even when shooting portraits and things like that, it doesn't really bother me. Sonys are Sonys, Canons are Canons, Nikons are Nikons. They each have their own different colors and unique looks. And I think it's a very subtle difference as well. I shoot in RAW. I make sure my white balance is around about right, but that doesn't really matter either shooting in RAW. And I develop my own tones and colors. And talking of tones and colours, I've got a new preset pack, link in the description. Now, there are other changes between these two cameras, but they're mostly video-centric. The ones I've already mentioned, they're the ones that I've found that really matter when it comes to landscape photography. If you want a really in-depth look at the A7 IV, check out Gerald Undone's channel. He does a fantastic review on it, and once Gerald has done a review on a camera, there's no need for anyone else to do a review. But this is more of a look at the camera and how it compares to the A7 III in a real-life setting when it comes to landscape photography. The flippy screen is great for those high up and low down shots. It does have its problems, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I really like it because you can get those different perspective shots without basically lying on the floor or without holding it way above your head and just kind of guessing. When I'm using them side by side, I really notice the difference between the EVF in the A7 III and the A7 IV. The A7 IV has a higher resolution EVF, and it's great for looking back through the images to make sure they are in focus. The overall handling of the new body shape is really nice. It's almost as if the A7 III has gone to the gym, got a personal trainer, is eating properly and has bulked out a little bit. Now, having a camera that produces more megapixels is beneficial. It means that if you mess the shot up a little bit, you can crop in a bit without losing too much resolution. I only noticed it side by side, but I haven't really noticed that much of a difference. Now, you really notice a difference when you're using the A7R IV compared to the A7 III, but then that camera's so much more expensive. Now, the focusing is so good. It's so sticky, and if you get something that stands out from the background, it'll stay with it and it won't lose it. Even if your subject goes out of the frame and then comes back in, it'll start tracking it as it comes back into the frame. But this really isn't needed for landscape photography. So if I take a photograph with the A7 III or the A7 IV, focusing wise, they both do a similar job. I basically go into flexible spot, put that where I want to focus, and focus there. Now, the one good thing that the A7 IV has going for it is you can change the color of the square. With the A7 III, it's dark gray, whereas with the A7 IV, you can change it to white, or I think red or green, but you can change it to different colors. Now if I was to tap on that, this is the tracking. You can see it's basically sticking to that point that I tapped on. It's really good and so much better than the A7 III. But like I said, if you're a landscape photographer and that's all you do, then this doesn't matter too much. Now the light's getting pretty harsh, so I'm going to nip over to Wales and carry on the review over there. One other thing that I did as well is clean off the sensors off both cameras. Being mirrorless cameras, that sensor does get really dirty. And even though on the A7 IV you have the shutter that closes, it closes when you turn the camera off, not when you just take the lens off. So you have to shut it down, take the lens off, and then it's closed. I have been out a couple of times with that function on, but I still got dust on the sensor. But I think it was because I was using the 28 to 200, and this telescopes, so it sucks in and out air. So obviously it's moving bits of dust around in the lens, and inevitably these are going to get on the sensor. So I'm thinking about there. That should look quite good. Maybe there. Maybe even lower. Could go even there. Yeah, let's go there. I'm going to shoot at f16, 1/8 of a second, ISO 50. My focusing is good, I hope. Yeah, focusing is good. It's not a brilliant composition, but it's okay. Now, one thing I've noticed straight away is the refresh rate of the screen. With the A7 IV, it feels kind of jerky, whereas with the A7 III, it feels really smooth. So I'm guessing there's going to be a setting for screen resolution. Now, this brings me on to these menus. They have updated the menus and they are touchscreen, but I don't really like them. It feels the same as when I changed from Canon to Sony, as I did from this Sony old menu to this Sony new menu. Because everything's vertical, you've got your tags down one side, but then to go on to almost the second page of the first tag, you've got to scroll all the way through them. Whereas with the old menus, you could go into menu 1 and then you just press right and you go into the next menu. So you didn't have to scroll through everything. This kind of makes it feel longer and more stretched out. Even though they've made these changes to the menu, they're trying to update them and trying to make them better, I don't think they've succeeded with these new menus. And to be honest, I'd prefer the old menu. But in saying that, you've got so many customizable buttons on these cameras, and you've got your FN customizable menu, and you've also got the My Menu option in here that you can put pretty much everything that you use in one of these menus or on one of the custom buttons. Right, let's try and find screen resolution. So zebra display, no. Focus peak it, no. Viewing, consider, no. No, it's not going to be in that area data set. Find a monitor. Select find a monitor. Monitor brightness. Viewfinder brightness. Find a color. Display quality. Ah, there we go. Display quality in page 47 of 53. The fact that you've got 53 pages that you've got to go through is just ridiculous. So that should be, that's better. When I first got the A7 IV, I noticed that the screen felt quite dark. So I went into the brightness setting and tried to increase that brightness, but I found that it was already on that sunny weather setting, so it couldn't go any brighter. But when you put them side by side, both in that sunny weather setting, they look exactly the same. Now I think the problem is in the menus and actually on the screen on the back of the camera, the writing is smaller. So the text takes up less pixels per character. This gives the overall appearance that the screen is darker, even though I think it's pretty much the same brightness. Now, I know I said I liked the flippy screen, but it does have its downsides. When you're shooting basically at eye level and you have the flippy screen out, it basically doubles the width of the camera. Well, maybe not doubles the width of the camera, but makes it feel a lot wider. And this leads me on to using an L bracket. An L bracket works really well with the A7 III, but with the A7 IV, because of that flippy screen, you basically can't use an L bracket effectively. You can attach it. The screen will flip out, but then it won't tilt. You can pull the side of the L bracket forward and you'll get a bit of a tilt on it, but it's nothing like using an L bracket with the A7 III or a camera that just has a fixed screen on the back. You'll find companies still are making L brackets for the A7 IV, but they're rubbish. Now I've kind of jimmy rigged a system onto my A7 IV. I've got a half cage and I've put a Peak Design quick release plate on the side and pulled it as far forward as possible. This seems to work, and this seems to give me all the functionalities that an L bracket would. Now, if you want to get that system, I've got links in the description to all of the bits that you need. One thing that always works well for a foreground element is a nice leading path. I'm going to get a shot maybe with a 25mm lens, so the 25mm Batis Prime, which is really nice and sharp. And again, I'll get a shot with the A7 III and the A7 IV. So let's have a look. I'm focusing on the big boulder. We've got 1/160th of a second, f8 ISO 100. Whoa. And I'm not going to take it just yet because that's a really big gust. And I'm actually just going to hold the tripod down and take it. The sky is a little bit overexposed, but not too much. These gusts are so scary when it comes to having two cameras on tripods. So I'm doing all of this faffing around so you don't have to. Right, switch the cameras and then we'll take one with the A7 III. Now the screen, it's still that old crappy resolution screen. So you're not going to get critical focus with it, although with the upgrade on the EVF, this helps. But I just wish they'd update that screen. I remember 10 years ago, I was using a Canon 6D, so the first 6D, and that had much better resolution on that back screen. It's just ridiculous that in 2022, we've still got crappy resolution on that back screen. Now, I can't come up this path and not take a photo of this very, very famous scene. The light is just about to dip behind this mountain here, so I'm going to get a quick shot. Again, I'll get it on both cameras. Yeah, I haven't got much time because that light's going to go really quickly. Hiking never gets any easier. It's one of those things that when it's a hard slog, it's a hard slog. There's no getting around it. It's really rewarding though. That's the main thing. So I'm thinking 25, it's been done a million times, but I can't not do it. Again, because it's windy, I'm gonna shoot this and I need to shoot it really quickly as well. That light's going really, really quick. Come on. Stay up, right? No, stay up. This is going good. No, wrong way. Settings are changing. That light is going. You can see the shadows here. That's annoying. And just like that, the light goes. The sun has dropped behind this mountain and I'm probably going to be chasing the light on the way down. I am going to get a shot of the top of Triven with the 85mm though. So I'm going to go for Triven on the peak of the top and thirds, and I'll make sure it's level. Again, not really a fantastic composition, but I'm just testing the image quality of these two different cameras with exactly the same lenses. Now, when I'm out shooting landscapes, part of me is really loving using this camera, but I think that's mostly to do with just having a new bit of kit and the motivation that I get from using a bit of kit and learning all about it. But there's not that much of a difference between this and the A7 III. For landscape photography, it really is just a case of working out what you're going to photograph, lining it up, getting good focus and taking the shot. So that updated focusing system really isn't much of a benefit. Now, it is a benefit if you're a hobbyist and you also photograph your family, photograph moving subjects, photograph wildlife and things like that. That's when that focusing system really comes into its own. I shoot sporting events every now and then, and it's so amazing for that. You tap on the back on the subject, and as long as it stands out from the background, it sticks to it like glue. Also, if you're a videographer, this is a big upgrade. That focusing system is so good that you don't have to just work with manual focus lenses anymore. And this is actually one of the reasons why I got it. I shoot these videos on my A7C, but if that fails on me, I've got the A7 IV to be able to film on then. So it's kind of a backup camera, a photography camera, all rolled into one. Now, when I'm filming my YouTube videos, I don't use a gimbal, I don't use anything like that. I just keep my A7C on my tripod and I walk as steadily as possible, and then I use the gyro stabilization, and it seems to work all right. No one's ever commented saying my footage is shaky. So for me, it's a great package. I don't have to have that extra weight of the gimbal when I'm hiking up to different places like this. So to sum it all up, if you're happy with the lenses that you've got and you use your camera for lots of different things, especially moving subjects, it's a worthy upgrade and it's well worth getting. Also, if you're a hybrid shooter and you shoot photography and videography, it's very much worth the upgrade. The extra videography functions that you have are absolutely fantastic, and they'll mean that you can shoot so much more and you can get much more steady shots. However, if you're solely a landscape photographer, I don't think it's worth the upgrade. I think it would be much better if you were to spend your money on new lenses, on a photography trip, or on a course. This will get you taking much better photographs than just a small upgrade with a camera. If, like me, you couldn't resist that temptation and you've bought the A7 IV already, you need to watch this video next. I go over some of the mistakes I make so you can avoid them.